I would love to hear more about the details of some of these. So sometimes when
Yeah.
I have guests on that aren't in my specific background, I just start to try to pry and ask questions. So some of these may be dumb, but I know enough about medical billing to know that from my experience, it can be complicated. When I get medical bills, I never really, there's a lot of times I don't know what they're for. You hear all these like gurus on Twitter being like, always fight your bill, never like agree to the first one that you get. I also, and so like, I don't know, I hear a lot of that anecdotal stuff. Then I hear from, I've got some friends that have a medical lab, and they're always talking about the hassle with billing and trying to get Medicare and, these things to reimburse you. And it just seems like a very kind of complicated, convoluted, thing.
Yeah.
Am I hitting on anything that's an actual thing there? Or is it
Well,
just
I,
anecdotes?
people may fall asleep by this explanation, but let me like kind of walk it through with you. There are kind of four main ways that healthcare providers get paid. Okay. The first way is Medicare. That's over 65. I'm like simplifying it, but let's just say that's over
Yeah.
65. You paid into this your whole entire life. Medicare pays your bills. Cool. The second way is Medicaid. That is not an age-based criteria. That's an income-based criteria. So you make below a certain amount of money, Medicaid pays your medical bills. Then there is commercial insurance, and commercial insurance can be like a combination. It can be a Medicare HMO, insurance policy, Medicaid insurance policy, but commercial insurance, that's like we pay into our employer, and then they're subsidizing it through our premiums in order to pay our bills, et cetera. And then there's just private. I don't have any insurance. I just pay out of pocket, right? So like those are the four ways that people get paid. The problem with the healthcare system is the following. There is no standardization around what a procedure costs. So there's standardization around what a procedure is, and there are codes for each one of those procedures. If I go and get knee surgery, if I get hip surgery, if I get heart surgery, like there are codes around what services were provided, right? But almost every location bills at different rates. So a physician's group in Iowa may bill $1,000 for a total knee, and a hospital system in Miami may bill $10,000 for a total knee. So their billing is just different. Right. Then you get into the world of Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial insurance plans. They all might pay differently. They may have like standard rates. Now, I take that back. Medicare pays one rate. They're pretty much, hey, this is what we pay, and that's what you're going to get. The commercial insurance plans, they will come in and say, oh, you charge $10,000? Sorry, we only charge $5,000. And maybe you have some wiggle room to negotiate up, but for the most part, they also sort of set the price. The problem with that is you now have this like fabric of patchwork pricing models around the country. So there's no standardization or transparency into what a procedure actually costs. And in that same example, if I go to a hospital and I say, hey, I need a total knee, and they say, okay, cool, $10,000. And you say, oh, I'm cash pay. I only pay, like I'm private pay. Like, oh, okay, well, a cash pay amount is $2,500. Like, well, where was the big difference there? Well, the big difference is they're marking it up as much as they can to see what either Medicare, Medicaid, or these commercial insurances will pay. Once they find out you don't have insurance, they're just like, oh, cool, I'll take what I can get. Here's $2,500. So that's like the craziness of billing and the cost of everything. The reason that people that you see on Twitter are like, never pay the first bill, always fight it, is because there is so much ambiguity. There is no set price. There is no standardization across the country. And so for many people, it's like, oh, hey, your bill is $20,000. If you fight that, you can get it knocked down to $1,500 in many instances, right? Because the amount that the surgery actually costs the hospital is not 20 grand. It's probably somewhere between like $500 to $1,000. Everything else in between there and the 20,000 is just a markup on that. So if you go and you actually fight with that company, the hospital, then you can get it knocked down. That's why they're like, never pay the first bill that you get.
Right.
And the reason you get the bill is because either your insurance company hasn't covered it or you don't have insurance. So that's a very long-winded answer to say, yeah, medical billing and medical coding is very complicated. The coding piece is it's standardized, right? Like black or white. Do they have this diagnosis? Do you not have this diagnosis? But the billing component, what you charge, what you collect, it varies from physician to physician, hospital to hospital, practice to practice. And so that's where these physicians need services to come in and actually bill and collect for them, put together their systems, send out the bills, post the bills once they're paid, track their accounts receivable, because they don't want to do that. They just want to go and spend their time actually providing procedures as opposed to doing all the administrative stuff.